At 13 years old, Sandra Schnakenburg was hit by a car traveling 100 miles an hour while she was riding her bike. In addition to having her face reconstructed, she suffered a traumatic brain injury long before such injuries were widely understood. Her parents struggled to cope with her forgetfulness, her memory loss, and essentially at some points even wanted to give up. This began her 10-year struggle with bulimia, which shaped her in profound ways and deepened her appreciation for resilience and healing. As I am reading her intro here, I can hear many of you are relating in so many different ways, and I can't wait to see how Sandra tells us her story.
Have you ever felt like giving up, quitting, throwing in the towel? Welcome to Never Ever Give Up Hope featuring Carol Graham. She's an author, health coach, and motivational speaker. Backed into a corner multiple times in her life, Carol shares with you stories on how she overcame some of the toughest obstacles a person can go through in life, but refused to give up hope. Rather than admit defeat, an opportunity was presented, and it involves each and every one of you. Carol will feature spectacular guests who will share their messages of hope, encouragement, and their inspiration to prove why life's adversities only make you stronger. And now, welcoming the host of the show, here's Carol Graham.
Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks for having me on your show. This is such an honor.
Sandra Schnakenburg is a dual American Australian citizen. She holds a BS in finance and international business from the Arizona State University. She has an MBA in finance accounting from USC. And after leaving a corporate finance career in 2010, she pursued creative nonfiction through courses at Wrightspace, Rice University, and the Writers University. Oh, I know already. I'm getting excited just to hear your story, Sandra. From a very young age, you imagined yourself having an amazing life. And as I read that about you, I was thinking, don't we all? You know, most of us from when we're very little, we have dreams of who and what we will become. But even through the darkest times that you had to go through, you still maintained that attitude of knowing and hoping for an amazing life. And every day I just love this about you already. Every day you consciously chose your attitude and you looked for the positive, even when you were going through painful situations. And then you were asking yourself, what can I learn from this? So thank you for being with us, Sandra. I look forward to hearing your story. And yes, please start from the beginning.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that introduction. That really does cover a lot. Gosh, I'm an author of The Housekeeper's Secret, and I was asked to write this story when I was kind of in the middle of like mid-30s, and my housekeeper had died and asked me on her deathbed to write her story. And
Oh,
when I
wow.
reflect back on that promise, I thought I never knew her story. I didn't know what she wanted me to write. I was in the middle of a finance career that was doing well. I was living in Australia. I was about to have twins. There was a lot going on in my life. So I put it all down. But at the
Mm,
same time, I remember like all the things I went through growing up. As you mentioned, I had this traumatic brain injury from a car accident, and our housekeeper was the one who really helped pull me through a lot of the intricacies of being lost identity. I lost my confidence because I didn't look well. I mean, most of my injuries from that car accident was facial. Uh,
Mm,
and outside of the traumatic brain injury, it was appearance didn't do so well because I had a lot of facial problems going through the windshield. And with that, I still believed in myself. I still knew there was something out there for me, and I still had that drive, but and the housekeeper did too. She understood my all the problems that I had during my recovery. She understood the memory loss, the imbalance, the tripping all the time. I mean, I was a mess. And my parents were rolling their eyes. They had high aspirations for me before the accident, and then it was like, well, let's set her aside. Maybe she's not college worthy anymore. Maybe we'll barely get her through high school. But Lee worked with me, and I came with reading and writing
mm,
and puzzles. And on Lee's deathbed, she had asked me to write her story, and this was a story she said all her life with us. One day I'm going to write a book and nobody will ever believe it. And I was
ha,
like, wow, what is that story? What are you writing about, Lee? You'll know. Just wait, just wait. Well, in the moments that I was recovering, I'd always pry, like, what happened with your husband and son's car accident? She told us
right.
they had a car accident and they were killed before she came to our house. But she never mentioned their names, the day they died, the day she was married, their birthdays. Nothing was ever brought up. I'd ask her, enough already, enough already. So I started to get very curious and also suspicious of why this happened.
Mm,
But after years had gone by, when I went and sat down and started to really think about the story she wanted me to write, I could not find the burial spots of her husband and son. I couldn't find that she was ever married. I couldn't find anything that linked her to a past.
oh
So,
my goodness.
yeah, it was crazy. And then I ended up discovering that she wasn't even the person she said she was,
Oh,
fabricated her entire past, and that she had come live on our 44-acre estate as our housekeeper for 30 years and changed her identity. And she was hiding out and didn't want to be found, didn't want to be found out. Yet, all that, and she was the best thing that ever happened to our family, best thing that ever happened to me, my recovery. And then that stemmed the question. Why did she do this? Why did she hide her past? Why did she run away when people were looking for her? And that's where the mystery of the secret, the housekeeper's secret comes in, is that she couldn't let us know what happened to her because she probably would have never gotten hired. It was so traumatic and so horrendous. But in all of that, I see somebody with perseverance, survival instincts, somebody who never gave up hope, somebody who had faith in God deeper than I could ever imagine. She carried like the St. Jude prayer in her apron every day for 30 years. Like she had it there. And I never understood that prayer because it always was like to help the hopeless. And I'm like, you're not hopeless, Lee. You're the best thing that ever happened to the family. You're like the strength of all of us. And she's like, oh, honey, you don't know. And I'm like, well, tell me. And she's like, oh, no. Very few words, this woman said, but they were all like weighted on me, right?
so why do you think she did that after she got to know you? In the first few years, and she continued to, to hide out if she knew she could trust you.
That's a great question. The reason I believe she continued with her story is because that's how she got the job. My mom wanted a housekeeper that didn't have a family. So she created a family and a loss. So it created a huge compassion. And my mom said, let us be her new family. And we were her new family. So we had compassion for her loss. We wanted to become her children that she lost. Like, and it was it the whole story fed into the narrative fed into our family bought it. And she became so close and intimate with my mom they became such a dynamic duo in raising six kids that
Mm,
she could never tell my mom at the end of the day that she had lied to her to get the job.
of
So
course.
she ended up going with the story, but she wanted this truth come out, but she wanted it to come out after she died and after my mom died, because somehow her prayers were always heard. And my mom died 15 years after Lee, and it was the 15-year mark that we were emptying my mom's house out after she died, and we found Lee's ashes in her closet. And it was like the inciting incident, would you say, in a story that got me to say, wow, I never wrote the book she asked me to write. I wonder what the story is. Let me go research her background, find out where her husband and son are buried, reunite her ashes with them once and for all. I still didn't see the story in all of that scenario.
Really?
No, I didn't see. I saw, well, what is the story? They died in a tragic car accident. She came to our house. We became her family, and then she died, and I reunited them with her. It's not really a good arc. It's not like, so there's no plot twist. There is, yeah, there's lots of drama, but it's not a story that is unusual in a way. But I would say when I went out and searched for their graves, I found out there was no husband and son. There was a whole fabricated identity. Her birth date wasn't her birth date. Her name wasn't her name. She didn't have that past. And then who was she and what happened to her? And through much research and connecting with different people, I ended up finding out her truth. And it was a riveting shock, riveting story, riveting journey to find it out, but unbelievable shock to our family. Took many years to process before I could actually put pen to paper. But I knew this was the story she wanted me to write. But it was also, hard for me because I loved her so much. And she had died with her secret. Like she never came clean, but yet that I know that's what she wanted at the same time. I knew that. It was just
Do
too
you
hard.
think she do you think she would have expected you to research and find the story?
I think she did because we have six kids in the family, and I was closest to her. In many ways, I were both the fifth children. We both were fifth in our family. She turns out had a traumatic brain injury in her life, which was very, very severe. And so she identified with me and my struggles so much that I think my inquisitiveness about her and my intuition, I had a high, I would, after the accident, I was highly intuitive. I have high frequency with that I connected with her that something wasn't right. And yet I couldn't put it into words because I wasn't really in understanding of what this gift was I had, but I knew there was something more. But so she knew because of my questions, my constant questions. In fact, I was
Right,
very
right, right,
annoying to her.
right.
And I think she asked me funny thing, she actually taught me back, got me back into reading, loving books. She got me back into writing journals. She said, all this helps your brain. And at the end of the day, I was a God lover. Like I always was, had faith that I was worthy. And through this all, I had a father that was a narcissist that always said I was unworthy, and all my children, all my siblings were unworthy. So I always fought that argument that I was worthy. And I think Lee supported that regardless of my disabilities. And it all comes down to the story was a interchanging struggle between my coming to my truth and Lee coming to her truth, me discovering Lee's truth, because obviously she's gone. My journey of discovering that truth comes full circle to my truth of why really I, what I really thought of my family and how I really fit into that family,
Right,
and
right.
why these challenges were presented to me so young, and why I constantly knew deep inside that I was worthy, and I did believe in myself to do something greater in my life than my parents even expected.
Now I am going to ask you some questions about your story, about her story. But before we do that, I want you to tell me who should read this book. Who does it appeal to? What awards has it been given? Because right now I'm like searching. I want to go get it right now, you know? And
Oh,
I'm sure that the audience is feel you're explaining it in such a way that it is definitely intriguing and it's true. That's the other side. It's not a novel. This is a true story. And what you had to go through to find the true story, oh my goodness, I am
mhm.
intrigued, as I know the audience is. But first of all, as I said, please tell us about who should read the book,
Mhm.
who will be interested, and also the awards that it has won.
Carol Graham would like to show you the path from misery to miraculous triumph in her fast-paced memoir, Battered Hope. She relates her determination to succeed as someone who experienced one horrendous nightmare after another. Gang raped and left for dead, loss of a child, husband falsely imprisoned, and cancer. Nothing could break her tenacity or faith. No matter what you face, heartache, loss, suffering, or injustice, Carol will illustrate how she became a victor the same way you can. The secret is to never, ever give up hope. Order your copy at Amazon or batteredhope.blogspot.com.
Let me just tell your audience that I wasn't a writer when she asked me to write this book.
Okay.
Yes, that was the biggest thing. And I was like, well, when I started unfolding her story and realizing the impact it had on me and the
Mm,
request and the promise I made to her, in order to honor her story, I needed to go back to school and learn how to write nonfiction creative.
okay.
And that was a shock. So I came to writing very different than a lot of writers. A lot of writers want to be a writer when they're young and they go to school to be a writer, and then they
Right.
decide to write a book later that maybe sounds like a good book, right? And I had this really big story, and I'd go to my writing classes, and they said, "Well, you can't write a story about another person. You know,
Oh,
that's not right." And she's gone. She can't even defend herself. And I'll be like, "No, but she asked me to write her story. You don't understand." And it wasn't just about Lee, even though the housekeeper's secret sounds like it's just about Lee. It's
mm,
actually my story, my memoir, growing up with
mm,
Lee as she comes to our home, all the
right.
intricacies of what she like from her eyes and from my eyes, and then my unveiling of Lee's truth as she asked me on her deathbed to write her story, how I go about on this journey, this investigative journey to research and discover her truth, then only to go full circle and figure out like my truth and my family. Um, now I really worked hard at writing it. And I will say it's funny that this podcast is called Never Give Up Hope, but I gave up hope. I will tell you, I
Aw.
didn't think I could do this. And many instructors told me this is not a first book story. This is a story for an advanced writer. And this is a story that combines decades and combines it really essentially two stories, my story and Lee's story. And it's two books, not one. And and then I then said, you can't write about, and our family was the wealthy family writing about the housekeeper. And you can't do that. People like you to write the underdogs coming to light. That and so everything was kind of in reverse in this story, but I kept going because I said, no, you don't understand. We were the poor rich people. I was working for Lee half my life. Just I did her work while she watched the Cubs games. We had a deal. All these different intricacies of the story, I got to express in continuing and by persevering in what I believed was a great story. So as I kept going, and I actually will tell the audience, I did pitch to an agent. I got an agent immediately, which some people say getting an agent's harder than writing a story.
Right,
Wasn't
right.
for me. The agent stayed with me all during COVID, and he was awesome. He really believed in the story. I got my story, but he wanted to change the name to Puzzle because Lee and I did a lot of puzzles, and it was like the whole story was like putting together a puzzle. Um, it didn't really fly with the five big publishers.
Mm.
And we ended up parting ways, and I found a hybrid publisher. She loved the story before I even found my agent, and she had looked at it just as I had written it, and she said, "This is worthy of publishing right now." And I said, "No, I want to edit it a few more times. I need to make it a little more intriguing. I want to make
Mm.
it a page turner. I want to keep people up at night." And she honored that. She goes, "Great. Okay, come back to me when you're ready." So I kept working it and working it. And at the end of the day, this story ended up being everything I wanted it to be and more. But I never knew anything about book awards. So this lovely publisher, She Writes Press, we had, weekly meetings and with a cohort of authors that were publishing at the same time. And in one meeting, she said, "I want you all to start applying for awards. So when your book comes out, you'll see if it's award worthy." And I thought, "Oh goodness, I'm so lucky I have a publisher and I'm getting published. Are you kidding? What are these book awards about?" Well, I applied and um, ended up getting the top award for independent publishing. I won the
Wow.
gold award for IBPA, and that's the former Ben Franklin Award. It's been around for many, many years, and it's held in high esteem. I had to fly to Minnesota. I didn't think I was going to win, so I didn't even write an acceptance speech, but had to go on stage and you know speak about the book. It was really an honor. I had no idea that the world and literary world saw my story as transitional, and people were writing like this: "Once in a decade do you read a story like this, and this is a story that once you read it never gets out of your head," that kind of thing. And it was like such
Oh
an
my goodness.
the next highest award was an IPPY book award, which is um, I won the silver medal for that, which is again unbelievable. And then it just kept going. I now have won 8 awards, including the top nonfiction award. I've won Eric Hoffer Book Awards, and I was a finalist in their grand prize, and I won the International Book Award and the International Impact Book Award. So I think all up, it's been eight. The book's been out for 8 months this month, and it's won 8 awards. Honestly, it's been shocking that it has. In fact, I wrote a recent essay to be and it's been published on everything I didn't know about awards and how I never thought in a million years my first book or writing
Mm.
would have won an
Interesting.
award, because I had quit writing so many times. I thought, you get a writer, you never arrive. Like, even though I feel like this has been an impactful book, you never arrive like I'm a great writer. Like, as I contemplate my next story and start outlining it, I'm thinking, wow, this journey was so hard, and here I go again, right? And but it's so humbling. And I believe through humility, through faith, through perseverance, through also there's like a higher calling. Like, honestly, this was a story that needed to be in the world. It ended up being in the world, and the world loved it, and people love it. So what I'm happy about is that it helps people as well. It helps people realize that, you can go through the worst things in your life. Not only did I go through a horrible, you know, situations with my car accident and having been bulimic for many years, but also just tolerating my father's abuse and dealing with, identity crisis all my life, never thinking much of myself at all. It's all I realized is that I'm going to do something that I could use my mind, because my mind is what is all I have now, right? I didn't really think I had a presence, but yet I do now. I do. That story has given me presence, has given me um, the confidence and the um, you know, gift of just being in my own self now, being my own identity and learning my identity and giving it back to the world to help other people who have gone through, eating disorders, struggles that they can't get out of, difficult situations. And it's not like you just magically get out. You actually have to go through it. You have to go through the pain and suffering. You have to identify where it's coming from, and then you have to own it, and then you release it. Once you own it, it's gone. Like it's no longer like even what they say about writing a book. Like, how do you write a book about all this, difficulty? And the truth is, no one can write a book until they're already healed because they've gone through all of the process of healing the trauma, and now they're able to reflect back on it and write the story and reflect back in a holistic way, in a way that can help other people, and not a like going through the trenches of my emotional suffering. It We don't have to drag people through the trenches when we write a story. We need to work out our own trenches, and then we need to bring the story to light to say anybody can get through this if you really, really persevere and own it. Just own your story.
Now, you did say a couple of different ways of why you felt that this story needed to be shared with the world. How is it different than other stories of this nature?
That's a really good question. Wow. I would say a lot of memoir in particular is about people overcoming something, whether it be divorce, alcoholism, drug addiction, difficulties, or, a difficult mother. This story is different because we lived it over decades. And we were living the story. We were living the lie that Lee had told us. We were living the incredible, like our family helped Lee heal by giving her a new identity and a new restart herself. Like she was able to escape her past by reinventing herself in our family. And then going forward, I was able to find my true self by writing her story and discovering mine. It's a kind of what makes the story so beautiful is that it's almost got a divine appointment feeling. Like it's a God divinely appointed story. Like it's like something, there's a higher purpose to the story of why and how Lee was actually a part of our family, how she helped us survive our
Hmm,
verbal abuse of my father, and all the negativity that was happening inside our home that she was the only one to witness. And she was able to turn it around and help every one of my siblings see a light in their life. Where my mom, who was married to this narcissist, she was so beaten down, she didn't have the strength to pull
okay.
to pull us
Hmm,
up by our bootstraps, but Lee did, and she did because Lee was Lee had already gone through her own trauma and had already been healed, and now she witnesses in another way a family suffering where she could be a very intricate part of the healing of our family, and in turn we helped her heal by giving her like
right.
the strength to be who she is. Mhm.
Is it going to be a movie?
Yes, it's going to be a movie. I I'm saying that in confidence. I'm not saying that 'cause I do not have a movie deal. I would say I get this from a lot of readers. This needs to be like a Netflix series or some sort of like, it's not only about like trauma, but it's so much history in here. It's history of mental illness at Mantino and what insane asylums actually did back in the day. It's also a movie that goes into the Creole society. Lee, the housekeeper, came from a very famous family. There's a museum about her family in Louisiana, which of course I visited. And there's this history that shows the incredible strength of her ancestors and how they survived the unsurvivable as well. They were um, they were actually her original ancestor, Coin, was came over and made, a concubine, a slave for a wealthy family, Pierre Matoyer. And with that, she had 10 kids with him after she already had seven with another slave. So she had
Oh
seven
my goodness.
children. And she ended up curing her concubine's wife of a fatal disease that no global doctor that has been flown in, because mind you, they were the wealthiest Creole family around. No one could cure her, but she knew her African family's um, you know, herbal combination that she put together ended up saving his wife. And through saving his wife, she was given land and she was given slaves of her own. She was the first slave to ever have slaves. She still continued to work. And then she ended up getting so wealthy on this land, spearing bears at night, selling them at the trade. She ended up buying all her children out of slavery. And then she ended up really being the wealthiest family. They were all priests and judges and attorneys, all in the Creole life down there in Louisiana until the Louisiana Purchase came and knocked them out from the French were no longer a part of the that that territory anymore. So there's a lot of history and depth that is rich in the story that brings to light directly linked to the housekeeper and also the housekeeper's um, survival. Like her ancestors survived the unsurvivable, and so did the housekeeper, Lee. So it's so beautiful because a lot of stories don't go into that far back. It's almost like a Yellowstone series where you have like
Oh, okay.
the
Right, right,
1700s, and you have the early 1900s, then you have the late 1900s where you have all the differences in our world, and they're really, really linked to this family and to the survival and the historically relevant that hasn't been really told. So there's a lot there for a movie. And the other thing about I do own the movie rights. The other thing is um, movies and film have liberty to fill in the blanks. When I write
right,
a memoir has been, checked and double checked and triple checked for truth, and it's passed
right,
all the different things. And but it now is truly something that the filmmaker could fill in all those blanks that I can't, because I didn't know I didn't know Lee's everyday life, in certain places she went to that were so relevant. And that could be all filled in beautifully by a filmmaker. I need to find the person with the vision that's willing to go to these places and build this story the way to honor it. And it's not just a story about my memoir and me or Lee.
right, right, right.
It's about a, a century of strife and reward and recovery and perseverance. So it's a survival story, no doubt.
Now we need a spoiler alert.
Do you want to ask me? You want to ask me which part of that is? Because there's a lot of spoiler alerts I could offer.
Maybe give us two little ones. I don't know. What do you think?
One of them is Lee did have a family of her own. And that's one of and that's a real shock. And because, she left them for us. So what, how, why, and who is the question. And I think the readers need to read the book to really understand that. I mean, it is the shock of the century, because who does that? Who leaves their children
Right.
and why? So, and I can't tell you, I can't tell I can't tell the listeners, because there is too much to that. And it's a great
Okay.
a book. We talk about this a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
The second spoiler would be um, one of them would be, how did Lee survive being institutionalized and treated and abused? How did she survive? Like, how did she get out of a place where the majority people of where she was didn't, and didn't get out, and not only didn't get out, but never were mentally healthy again? That is the question for, that's like a God question. Like, why do why did I survive my accident when other people are hit and disabled forever?
Exactly. Yes.
It's a God thing. And I think, I always say God had other plans for her, and obviously he did. And her ability to discard or actually, you know, uh, the question is, how did she do it and not let her past come seep
Right,
up in
right.
her everyday life with us for 30 years when she spent every day with my family? How did she not have even an inkling of a hint that she had suffered as she did? There was nothing. She gave us nothing. And besides like being angry that I asked her questions, there was not a lot there. So those are two pretty big spoiler alerts, but I think,
Okay. Now,
yeah.
in the 30 years that you knew her, obviously you did not live there the entire time. So you maintained a relationship with her. Is that what happened?
Oh, yes, we were very close. When I went off to college, which was a big thing right there, probably wouldn't have gone without her, without her really getting on my dad, because my dad said I wasn't worthy of college, and he really um, didn't want to waste his money on me, but basically. But Lee had been working with me for so many years. And I was back to my, high grades. Um, and Dad didn't. He never really. He was a man who didn't change his mind. Once he decided something, he just kept it, regardless of no having more information. Just going to college was, yeah, a huge part of my, you know, just coming to terms with who I really was and fighting against the system of my dad's expectations of me.
Did your siblings have a similar reaction or response when they found out who she was?
They did. They were all absolutely shocked, absolutely stunned, and we we talked about it for a long time, like how, why, who. Um, we've gone to the great depths to meet people and to understand her history and to get her her truth. And I think, yeah, I think she definitely would have been very happy with the fact that we loved her enough, so much to honor her story, to fulfill her promise, and to um, bring it into the world in a way that shows and the world ends up loving her from which,
Oh, okay.
and have so much compassion for her,
Right.
and that's what she deserved anyway. And mhm.
So, in conclusion, what would you like to say?
I think I'd like to share. Sometimes you never know the people you love the most. And I really think that couldn't be a truer statement. In our society, we are all survivors in many ways, but everyone's got secrets and we don't know the depth of them. And I also want to encourage readers or listeners to look into their stories, because I would have never thought our family had a story like this. And here I was in the
Mm,
midst of living it. Like,
right,
people thought, like, did you realize it was this story when you were living it? Of course not. I didn't even realize I was abused. I didn't know this is all I knew. I only knew what I knew. I didn't
right,
even realize I
right.
had a problem with food. I just thought, until I really went and got help, like, you just are we were so isolated on 44 acres, and we were way out there. We didn't really have a sense of what was true or not and what was right or wrong. We were in a very much of a bubble. And I think in a lot of ways, families do just grow up with what they teach their children, what they know, whether it be a certain faith, a certain, belief system. We are given that to say it's true. But then as we get to a certain age, we start questioning what that is. And I would say the audience is, be curious, because with curiosity is knowledge, education, openness. You don't just accept everything people tell you. And this is in
Mhm.
every way, in everything in life. Let your brain do the work and be curious, ask the questions, and do a little research, because there is, truth is what is truth? I had to ask that myself all like
Mm,
writing the book. What is truth? Is it what Lee thought, what I think, what, you know, I think that's it's really factually proven, all these things. So it's, it goes deep and it can very much expand one's mind and belief systems, and like when you don't have limited beliefs, you have a broader sense of what is truth. So I got kind of deep on that. I don't know if
yeah, I was gonna say
more
that's
than
that's
that.
quite an impactful statement, and
Yeah.
but I do appreciate that very, very
Mhm.
much. Thank you.
Mhm.
Well, this has been, how should I label it?
Mind blowing.
Definitely intriguing, interesting. Got me on the edge of my seat, and I don't even know the story yet. So everybody needs to, this is a given, needs to rush out and buy a copy of this book and say, I read it first.
Well,
So,
what is interesting is when people read it, I get emails from all over the country, and people are like, I'm blown away. I can't get this out of my head.
right, right.
And just want to tell everybody. So I'm getting a lot of requests from book clubs around the country that I don't even know the people. And they ask me, can you come on Zoom and be a part of my book club? Because we have so many questions. We want to talk about your story. And there's so much to talk about. There is so much depth and questions that leaves the reader with. And that's what I was hoping for, because I didn't want to give my analysis of everything. I wanted the reader to think about these things.
Good, good.
Mhm.
And so when you do those kind of podcasts and whatever, are you going to divulge about the whole story because they've already read it, or how are you going to handle that?
Oh, for book clubs, I have a whole presentation, like
Okay,
a PowerPoint, and I have pictures, and I show
okay,
I
good.
show the in-depth truth of all the story, and they're blown
Okay,
away. Like they get to put names to faces and events to
right.
things, and then they get to talk about why and who, and
Okay, okay, good.
it's really rich. It's a whole different experience than when I go to an event. Like I'm going to an event in a few weeks, and like a 200 person luncheon, and I'm the speaker, and none of these women will have read the book, but I get to speak
Right,
about the story like we are, but not give away too many spoilers, and
right.
then intrigue them if they wish to go further and buy it. That's great, but it's really a a person's desire whether they want to go and indulge. And I'm 100% understand if that's not their gig, but I also understand a lot of people have said this is the thing about the story. And I think you asked me this earlier. I don't know if I answered it exactly, is that there's so many issues in the book. It's a broad spectrum of issues that everyone who reads the book can literally identify with some of those issues, and they end up saying, wow, that was my dad, or that was our, mother, or that was this and that was that, and it really becomes a therapeutic story. It's all story, but it becomes a therapeutic event for these readers too. Like they did never thought their family had a story until they read my book.
Oh my goodness,
Mm.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
No kidding.
So then I have to talk about writing a lot in
Yes,
my talks
yes.
too, because the journey of writing is a whole half of my talk, because of me not being educated in writing from
Right.
undergraduate, and being a professional in the corporate world. I wasn't a writer, but at the same time, when you put your mind to something that you really want to do, and you read the right books that help you teach you writing, which I have a list of them on the back of my book, it's amazing what you can learn on your own if you're really determined. Mhm.
Exactly. Well, I thank you.
Thank you for having me.
This was, yes, I thank you. And I'm looking forward to, of course, sharing it, and I'm looking forward to finish reading it. I just started. So
Mhm.
I'm and I know it's a page turner, that's for sure. So I'm looking forward to that. And I do um yes, I thank you. You did such an awesome job of keeping us on the edge of our seat. I
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
that. The mystery is there. Can't wait to get it answered.
Yeah, and I also tell readers, I go, I'd love to hear from my readers, like either email me or, write a review on Amazon or
Yes,
Goodreads. That means a lot to me. It means a lot as a first-time author too. And I think it's really interesting. I read everything everybody wrote, and it just is touches my heart. Even reviews that aren't 100%. Some people are write real positive reviews, but give me a 4 star, and whatever they do, whatever reason. But I've really been so grateful for the reviewers and all their words and how much they love the book. And
yes.
yeah, it's been great.
Well, your attitude comes across very clearly, and you are very appreciative of people. And because of where you have been personally
Yeah.
and your own story and how you have incorporated the two and put them together I find that an amazing feat. So
Mm.
looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can't
And
wait.
we will be in touch. Thank you for
Okay.
being
All
on.
right. Thank you for
Never
having
ever.
me, Carol. All right.
Thank you. Thank you for being on. Never ever give up hope.
Thank you for listening to Never Ever Give Up Hope, featuring Carol Graham. Did you know that most people succeed because they are determined to? Quitting was never an option. Carol loves your comments and will respond to each one. So please subscribe and review this podcast. A rating of 5 stars would be outstanding and appreciated. Remember, if you are still here, there is always hope.
Feeling stuck in your prayer life? You're not alone. Join Pray the Answer webinar led by prayer coach Carol Graham. Each session will help you shift from fear to faith and from worry to worship. Learn how to pray God's word and receive real answers. Visit prayingmiracles.com to register today.